The Grappling Hour is brought to you by Luda Gear, athletic support items created by grapplers for grapplers. Fire Grub Meal Prep. Meal prep done right.
Yeah. Check it out.
We don't normally do a Wednesday episode, but here's the thing. I was able to find out that one of our friends who we were supposed to interview, listen, I'm not going to say I forgot. I just, when you do something and you kind of don't remember it, but you didn't forget it, it's somewhere in between there. So if you could figure that out, great. Let me know what you thought of it. But I've been wanting to interview this guy for some time. I saw him recently fight out here in California over in Studio City. I was very, very impressed by his stand-up style. We also share a sponsor, full disclosure, so everybody chill the F out. I was going to wear my Luda Gear t-shirt, but then I thought this might be like one of those infomercials where just in between it's just us being like, what do you love about Luda Gear? I love all of it. So instead, I thought I would just bring you the man himself. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are speaking with gifted Gabriel Green. Gabe, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on this special Wednesday interview. It makes me feel like, extra special.
It better, especially since you just, again, full disclosure. I reached out to you a long time ago and I said we should do an interview. And then it became somewhere in, I think, October, we circled back to each other. And I was kind of like, it seems like a good time. We should do this now. And you just happened to be going on a vacation. Who were you going on vacation with, and what were you doing?
Just the fam, me, my mom, dad, and brothers and sister. My mom, she turned 50, so we're like, let's go take her on a trip. So we had a good time, enjoyed it. But yeah, you hit me up literally right before, I was packing. I was just out of there. Yeah. It was bad timing, but you remembered me. You came back to me, so I appreciate it.
I did, and again, it's not my proudest moment as a booker, because normally I have a booking sheet and I double check and I cross off names, and this is even with people who, in the meantime, sometimes go, "Oh, Raph, I would love to do the interview. Come back to me in 3 months," and I always go, 3 months, no problem. And I have it written down. So,
dang, people booked for 3 months. People got some crazy schedules.
I will tell you this right now. There are a couple guys who are friends of our show who have, I'm not going to name names. I'm just going to say I've seen them on Joe Rogan. I won't say who.
Ooh.
I think it was right about the time you hit me up, I think, actually, or when we crossed right back and forth. I had just booked somebody and they were like, ooh, hey, I'm going on Joe Rogan. And I was like, fine. Go ahead.
I mean, it's a good little podcast show thing you got going on. I listen to it. I like it. So I mean, you're great. You're great. I love being here.
Oh,
but
awesome.
If Joe Rogan hit me up, I'd for sure choose you for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Sure. And not just because you're on my show now. Anyway, here's what I wanted to bring you on for. Okay, so this is what made things very complicated for me. I'm obviously familiar with you and your fight style. However, things were a little bit jumbled when you were fighting one of my friends, Rich Leroy.
Now, I love Rich. I'm gonna be honest.
I'm gonna be very honest with you. I liked you as well, but you're fighting one of my friends, and then I go over to Luda Gear guys, and this is before they were my sponsor, and they were just like, "Hey, can you get some really good shots of Gabe if you can?" And this before the fight's even starting, and I'm just kind of like, this is weird, dude. I'm just trying to watch and be Switzerland there.
Yeah.
No, but really, if you can get a good shot of him, that'd really mean the world to us. And I gotta say this, dude. What made it so happy for me is that you and Rich had a war. Your striking looked amazing.
Thank you.
And that both, like, in between the rounds, in the beginning of that second round, you and him hugged. And his last opponent that he had was just kind of a jerk. And, we normally tend to be very, we try to be as unbiased as possible. But when I saw one of his last opponents just like trying to like get in his face and trash talk him, it was so nice and welcoming when you guys like were in the middle of hugging each other.
Hugging each other. Yeah, I mean, it's always terrible when because I mean, I feel like some people have to be there and be like, mean and stuff because you're going in there and, I mean, essentially you're doing things that aren't very nice to each other when we are on site there. But I mean, that's all. It's just a job, we're just in there to do what we're getting paid for. But yeah, I never have any kind of animosity or like there's no beef between any of my opponents. And Rich, like from the start, even at weigh-ins, was just awesome. So I was just like, man, I like this guy. Like just from the beginning,
dude.
It's like I showed up to weigh-ins and I got like the craziest sweet tooth ever. Like just you'll ever find. And so the first thing I usually eat when I get off of the scale is one of those like those protein cookies, the vegan ones, the Len and Larry's.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were like on sale, like 2 for $5 or whatever. So I bought 2 of them. I was just like, man, I'm offering one to Rich because like I have a sweet tooth, maybe he has one too. So like I like pulled out right. I got off the way after I weighed in. I was like, I got a sweet tooth. I was like, I don't know if you have one, but I brought you one anyways, just because. I mean, I have no problems with anybody. And then he was like, oh, like he said thank you, and then he offered me some coconut water. So he just bonded from the beginning. It was just like, man, I was like, this guy's cool.
Yeah, no.
They're like, go ahead.
You guys just did not look like, from the look of it, on paper, like that way, like you're fighters. You look like more people who had got like a board project together and they go, oh, did you bring cookies? I brought punch and pie. Don't worry. We're going to get along great.
Yeah, no, and then like even we're getting checked out the doctor at weigh-ins, and we're just talking to each other about like past fights and stuff. Talked about because I loved his fight with Jalen. We talked about that one because that was a full on like war too. And then like he came back and he knocked him out, and I had lost to Jalen, so I was talking about that fight. And yeah, he was super cool from the start. So like I was like, I mean, we had to go and then we had to fight. We had to do what we're there for. But yeah, there's no problems going into it or anything. So yeah, got a lot of love for Rich. And just, I mean, he's good, man. He like the next day after the fight, like I didn't feel too good afterwards. I was a little sore.
Yeah.
And hurt and stuff. Definitely was in a fight. There's no winners in fights. You know what I'm saying? Like there's like everyone's gonna wake up hurt the next day. So yeah, it was a good one.
I mean, I want to go back to the fight in a minute, but just to kind of set the tone, just so that people really understand, you mentioning him and Jalen, like they have one of my all-time favorite fights to just watch live because it's one of those things where you see the improbable happening, which is a fighter who looks like they're out of it, coming back into it, and then being super dominant and it just went wild all over the place to the point where I distinctly remember doing the same thing where I go, hey, man, I'd like to interview you, but not today. Like, today's not a day where I feel like I'd get the best interview out of you.
Yeah.
And afterwards, he and I became friends just because of how honest he was in terms of his story and how cool he was, and just a very super approachable guy. So obviously when I hear you're going to fight him and I hear wonderful things about you from our mutual friends, it's kind of one of those cool things where you go, I mean, I just want a good fight. And I think we got one. So when you see a fight, though, like with him and Jalen, does that affect at all any of the kind of training? Does that just tell you, like, I have to put this guy down in order for it to be a finish?
I just knew that he was super tough. And I knew that, I knew there's like it's gonna be really, really like impossible to just like break him. Yeah. So I knew it was gonna like I had to put him down and stay on him tough, like just like be on his bumper and just like not let off. and either because honestly I didn't think I was gonna get like I was gonna just completely knock him out or anything like that cold. I was like, nah, he has like an amazing chin. I don't know if anyone can be able to just completely put him out. So I was like, maybe I'd get like a TKO out of him or maybe a submission, but either that or I was already preparing to just go the distance because of how tough he was for sure.
Absolutely. And you were mentioning, again, a little bit later, you wrote this really nice note to him. And again, we're talking like just super cool things that you can see that sometimes I don't know that people understand that is the dynamic that happens between fighters, which is you have a shared experience. You have something that you and him only kind of understand. Everybody else may have
It's
seen it.
super intimate.
It is a super intimate sort of thing. What did you guys say to each other after the fight?
I just went in, like just inside the ring, I gave him props. I was like, I told him that he was a tough guy, and all that. And then afterwards, I gave him a little bit of time because, like it was, you just lost the championship fight. So we were in our mutual corners in the back, and then I just waited a little bit for things to kind of clear up, and then I walked into his room. And then he was with like his family and stuff, and I showed respect to everyone, shook everyone's hand, his mom and his dad, and I just talked to him again. I gave him a lot of respect, because it definitely was an easy fight. Like you said, it was a war. It was back and forth, and just told him that like he's a great fighter. Don't be down, because I talked about how I felt when I lost my first pro fight, because he was undefeated at the time, and I was like, man, just use it as a fire, come back strong after. I was like, you're really good, man. Just don't let this throw you off track at all, because sometimes fighters get that L, and then they're just like, oh man, and it really hurts them. So I was trying to give them like a little encouragement, like, nah, this ain't gonna be the end of you, man. Just keep going. You'll be back like better than ever.
I mean, full disclosure, and I think you'll enjoy this. I think maybe about 2 or 3 weeks after the fight or something like that, he and I went to go grab lunch. And, we're ordering and we're starting there. And we're getting to that part where we're about to exchange what's been happening. And, I order a drink and he just goes, yeah, so how have you been? You get your ass kicked lately? And I was like, Rich, and he just starts laughing and he's just like, nah, I just need to get out of my system. How you been, dude? So he was good. It was just funny that I'm like, what do you want me to do? And he's just like, no, man. He's like, I want to talk about it, man. It's good. So he is one of those guys who's got a great sense of humor about himself. He doesn't take himself too seriously, and I just appreciate it. But there were a couple things that I wanted to talk with you about in particular that I saw that you were doing. Number one, when I say that your striking was really good, I felt like your hands looked like super sharp, and you were really able to disorient Rich in a way that I saw like he couldn't get his rhythm in. So where was that strategy, and what were you looking to impose that day?
I mean, it wasn't even so much that day. I think my record's a little deceiving because of all the rear naked chokes that I like get. But I mean, I don't get me wrong, I like grappling, but like my first love top when it comes to just competing is striking. I love to strike. I love to bang. I like standing toe to toe. I like that part. And then the grappling came after. I mean, I love that too, but just as a fighter, I like to strike. So that's just, it's always something that I've done. I just don't always get to because of one fighter just decides he doesn't like to get hit with me, and he tries to turn it into a grappling match, and then that's when I usually capitalize on that, and then I'm able to get some kind of submission. But so that's what's cool about this. I got to do what I love the most with Rich, and he was down right there too, just all right, let's bang, and then that's what it was most of the time. So I mean, it wasn't anything particular. My style is I think I'm a striker first, and then but I'm a bit of an opportunist, and if someone gives me a neck, then I take it because my goal is to win at the end of the day.
I mean, what a first world problem you have of. I mean, I guess I'll choke him out if I have to. The reason why I'm saying that is because I felt like there were at least 3 moments that I can remember from a fight that's been a bit ago, but I distinctly remembered just the way that Rich's hands. At one point, he started kind of blocking, like in a very unfamiliar way that I've seen him, and just in the way I've seen him fight. Like, it was the ability for you to like find the inside so many times that I was like, nah, dude, everything's working really solid here. And even when I think he was working toward a takedown, or he ended up getting mount, that's where your jiu-jitsu came in.
No, yeah. That was I think he thought like he might have, because I've seen some of his fights, and it looks like when he gets mounted, like he does a lot of damage. So yeah. So when I was like, because I do work wrestling and everything too, and then I came out of the corner, and as I was leaving, my coach was like, hey, like, change it up too, like don't just go all striking. He's like, you're a mixed martial artist, throw some shots in there too. So I was like, all right, and then so I was like, this is my time. I felt it. Went for the shot. It was a pretty good one, but yeah, no, like he hit like a switch on me or something, and boom, right. I was just like, well, I was like, oh, time to work that jits. I was like, I don't want to be under him for too long, so yeah. And I just did my little thing, got my leg over, created a little bit of a scramble, and then we got back up to our feet. But yeah, no, I was. That's one thing too. I was like, I don't want to be underneath him.
I would highly suggest it. I've just trained with him rolling, and I can tell you this: I'm so glad that we're not striking when I've trained with him and he's been on top, because I'm just like, even as is, he's got a solid, heavy presence to him.
Yeah,
but I'm just like, I would have been murdered 5 times if that motherfucker could strike me.
He's so thick, man. Yeah. I'm gonna tell you right now, it's gonna be weird, but so. We're facing each other, right? And it's before we touch gloves. I'm like walking back and forth. They're all announcing both of us, and I look at him, and I'm just like, man, that guy's buff. It like just pops in my head. I was like, this guy is so thick. I was just like, oh my god. Like, I'm just totally checking him out. Like, Jesus, this guy, he's freaking huge. And then, like, I'm like, all right, back to the game plan. Let's get ready. But, like, it totally popped in my head. I looked at him, I was like, this guy is huge, man. Yeah. And then I definitely felt it. Like, even I was throwing a lot of kicks and stuff. And, like, every time I, like, kicked his leg, I was like, that's like, not moving. It's like, that's a heavy leg right there. You got, like, them tree trunks, man.
Yeah. No, he's annoying. I've tried to leg lock him a couple times. And I'm just like, I feel like I got to, like, get an axe first. To even like start,
just gotta start chopping down that way.
Like, he stared at me one time and he's just like, "What do you think that's gonna do?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. I'm trying something here. You just got these tree trunk legs. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with them."
Yeah, dude. I'll tell you, just super. Yeah, he was super strong. I was actually, because I didn't really see too much of his jiu-jitsu. I was surprised by that too, like how good he was at defending the shot in the first place.
Yeah.
He had good hips.
I think he welcomes that, and I think he likes being in that realm. Like, I think he's one of those fighters where you were able to find that code and get him in a very bad spot and work there very, very impressively. But he's also one of those fighters, after seeing a Jalen fight, where you go, am I knocking you back into the fight? Because that's a concern. And that's not something that you think science is supposed to tell you can happen.
No, I mean, so when I dropped him and then he falls to the mat, that's when I was like, mentally in my head, I was like, okay, I got to stay on him because he's on the floor now. Like, this is going to be my chance, if any, to end the fight. And so I hit him a couple more times, and then he just keeps on standing up. I was just like, in my head, I was like, dude, this guy's part Terminator or something. Like, I'm like, how's he? And I'm hitting him, and his head just keeps turning, and then he's like on one knee, and then I back off because I don't want to hit him in the back of the head or anything.
Sure.
And then as soon as he like is all the way back up and faces me, for a second I'm just like, Jesus, like, what I gotta do to this guy? Like, but then I hit him a couple more times, and it was over. But yeah, I was just he's a resilient man.
Well, you say a few more times, I'll say this. There was definitely a moment where I was like, we're good. We can stop this fight anytime. And they were definitely letting him with an opportunity or two to stay in that fight. But I was like, yeah, I was pretty good.
I feel like people would have been okay if it was stopped a little earlier. Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, I know I was in the same position as him, and the ref gave me, a little bit more time to get out of there, I would totally be okay with it, hoping that I could change things up and come back from it. I mean, maybe not some of my family members would be okay with it ending a little
Listen,
earlier, but just me as like a fighter, especially with that the belt on the line and everything, and then knowing that where he comes from, like how he came back last time.
yeah,
The ref is already, and then I think it was Mike Beltran for that fight
yes.
too. So I mean, he knows like this guy, he's a tough guy. So he gave him his opportunities to come back. So I mean, I understand it, and if I was in the same position, I'd be completely okay with it. Him giving me that extra time too. But I mean, yeah, as someone watching from the audience, I would have totally understood if they stopped it a little earlier.
Spoken like a true fighter, sir. I understand that. I guess that's what makes us have two entirely different lives that we lead. Because I'm sitting there and I'm like, yo, I get it, but yeah, this is a wrap. We got a place to be here, son. So anyway, our good friend Jonathan King says, "What's up, champ?" I believe he is sending his best on over to you, sir.
Hey, what's up, John?
So here's the thing that we like to do. We like to kind of take it back for a second. I do want to know you about your beginnings as a mixed martial artist, but you mentioned this thing off air that piqued my interest, which was you were at this weekend's. I don't know exactly how to title this card, but it was an event that happened that featured mixed martial arts. It was the Tito and Chuck card. First of all, how weird was it to be there for just that? Let alone you were there cornering somebody, but just at the venue for that particular event.
It was pretty weird. I didn't think I'd ever see them fight again. Like just the fact that they were both there, I was like, even at weigh-ins when I saw Chuck walking by me, I was like, oh snap! Like it's actually Chuck. He's gonna fight. So that was pretty weird. I mean, yeah, it was just different. And then the fact that it was like Golden Boy, like I was like, oh, this is just. I mean, honestly, I kind of hope they do more because any other promotions that want to enter, the MMA world, I'm all for because of, I mean, just basic economics, it's only better for the fighters. But yeah, no, it was just kind of, it was a little surreal just to see Chuck and Tito, standing off and then going to fight. But at the same time, I was kind of like I was just in the back of my head, I was wondering like what's why is Chuck even, why did he want to even do the fight? Because like he had won the first two. Like it's kind of, like if you're doing rock paper scissors, it's like best 2 out of 3. So he already won 2. It was like there's no point in the third one. So that was just one of my thoughts.
It's one of the most awkward moments that I feel in about 5-10 years we're gonna have to explain to a new generation of people who are in mixed martial arts and go, well, as part of the people who showed up at the very beginning, there were these guys.
Yeah.
And somewhere in the golden age, they showed up again. And then in the postmodern phase, they showed up and things happened. And it's one of the few fights that I wish that we could put up to some sort of congressional. Like, they have to get 2/3 approval before they can fight. Like, at a certain point, I was just
so you're just like, who approved this?
I just thought to myself, I was like, I'd like a vote. I know how I'm voting on this one, and I'm good. Because, like you said, you got best 2 out of 3, but I think the appeal was people love trilogies. And it's a weird thing because you could say that Chuck in his prime was beating Tito, but that Tito got the very last say. So maybe everybody gets a piece of a celebratory pie, if you would.
Yeah, I can see that. But, yeah, I mean, I agree with the whole, yeah. I'd like to, it's just, because even like, like BJ Penn fighting and stuff, like, it seems like fighters have a hard time, and hopefully I don't when I'm there, where I'm like, I'd like to just, like retire, walk away, and then like just be done with it, and completely like content with, like my history and what I've left behind, my legacy. So hopefully when I retire, I just stay retired, because I mean, that's how I'd like to keep them, like just like in my memories, like the times they fought and like what they were as a fighter. Just to see them have them to come back and fight now, it's just kind of like, you know, like they're not the same fighter anymore. They're little things are a little off. But I mean, it was like it was really cool to see him walk out and stuff and enter the cage. But it was just like, you know, both of them, they were just different fighters than what I've last seen, and I would have liked to remember them as how they were before.
Absolutely. And, you know, again, at a certain point, we just want to make sure. So one of the things that I did say, though, was I said, I'm not in love with the main event, but I think where our Venn diagram is similar is that I love events that give opportunities to new people. So it did seem like there were a whole bunch of people from our local circuit out here in Cali that got their time to shine. And you were there for Josh Jones, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That night went okay. So
he ended up it went 3 rounds and he got the unanimous decision. Super close to finishing him in the second. He had him like fully mounted and he was throwing just elbows and just letting him go. Ref didn't stop it though, and then he ended up switching it and going for like a 5-finger guillotine. And it looked like he was almost going to tap from that, but then the round ended. So he was right there on the brink of the win right there. And then third round came out, and he just, you know, kept on it. He already knew he won the first 2 rounds, so he wasn't coasting, but you know he was in there moving around and stuff. Didn't want to do anything too crazy to put him at risk because his opponent looked like he still had some heat on him a little bit, you know. So saw what happened with what was it? It was a minute ago. The fight before DC, what's his name? Black Beast, when he like knocked him out with like a punch in the last like freaking 10 seconds, you know. So, you know, like if you're up 2 rounds, there's no need to like completely like stay in front of someone. But even he didn't really pull off completely though. He still gave it to him, and he won the 3rd round for sure. Like I said, he had unanimous. Every ref had him, or judge had him winning that round too. So I mean, it was just a good all around win. He looked good wrestling. He looked good striking. He looked good everywhere. Josh the man.
What does cornering feel like to you the week of? Because you obviously have a feel for when you're fighting, but what is that week going into a fight for someone else like for you?
Cornering is the most nerve-wracking thing ever. It's like when I go into a fight, I don't have much jitters. I'm like pretty calm. I know I busted my ass and did everything I could to get myself ready for this fight, like at 100%. And then I know when those doors close, I'm ready, 100%. Like I couldn't do anything else to get myself any more work to get me ready. I'm in like the best shape, the best me is showing up that day. Now, when someone else is stepping in the cage, I don't know what they did. You know, like, I mean, I do, but I don't know about all that extra work and everything. And I've seen them, like, how they look in practice, but, like, I have no control over it anymore. They're the ones fighting. I can give them tips in between rounds, you know, and, like, yell out some stuff in the corner, but it's, like, I'm just right there, like, powerless, you know, like, I can't jump in there and beat up the other guy or, like, you know, so it's like,
well,
oh, yeah.
Not legally.
No. I mean, they've done it before.
There are some prominent fights that have happened recently that they beg to differ.
Yeah, so, you know, it's frowned upon, so I'm not going to do that. But, yeah, just, like, I swear my heart's, like, bump just through the roof, the heart rate when they go in there. Even like, and then I train with Josh all the time. I knew he was ready too, but it's just like the fact that I have like no control over it all. I'm just like watching, you know, someone that, you know, you train with all the time. Got a lot of love for Josh. It's like a brother to me, and I'm just like, oh man, like and then I know how bad he wants it. So it's like for him to like go in there and then like potentially, because you guys can lose, it's possible, you know. It's like, oh, it sucks, man. So all I want him to do is win, you know. And so it's like, yeah, cornering is just, it's nerve wracking. It's and then, you know, it's like when you're fighting yourself, it's like it's kind of all about you that week, you know. Like everyone's like, how do you feel, you know, like everything good? They're asking these questions. You're like, yeah, I'm good. And mentally, you're in the zone and everything. And then, so when it's someone else fighting, you're doing that to them. Like, how do you feel? Everything good? You need anything? You know, you're over there catering to him instead. So I mean, yeah, it's a completely different experience, but a lot more nerve wracking. But it still feels just as good to get that win. You know, like you're happy for him. Like, absolutely. Yeah, man, you did it. You went out there, you did your thing. You know, brought a W back for not just himself, but the whole team. So it's great.
Absolutely. Do you have like a form that you make them fill out to corner you? Do they have to bring you a gift? Because I've always wondered this with people. It's kind of like when you have a wedding, you don't just have a groomsman. You're like, oh, I gotta get him a gift. Oh, I gotta do all this.
Oh no.
Like, I think, but I think you should really look into this. I think this is an opportunity if you want, so like, I'm gonna need 3 sets of gummy bears before we can discuss whether I can corner you or not.
It's like, oh, which day do you want? That day's looking a little tight. Maybe a couple pack of gummy bears.
Yeah.
I would say I'm more of a recess guy. It's like maybe a couple peanut butter cups will make me change my mind.
See, we've been having a bunch of kids, and I say kids because they're in like their early 20s, who I know who fight. And when I interview them, I say, how does the weight cut go? How do you cut the weight? And they go, man, it's so rough. I hate giving up gummy bears and beer. And I'm like, no, we don't live in the same world. I'm like, if I had to cut down beer and gummy bears, it wouldn't exist. I barely drink as is, and the gummy bears that I do have are like once every 4 months. And they're like, oh, I have it daily, and I'm like,
you need to get your gummy.
So easy.
You need to get your gummy bear game up, man. You need to have them all the time. Nah, I mean, I honestly, I work out so much during the week that I legitimately like probably go to like a buffet a week at the end. I like eating pretty clean. I eat really clean like during the week just because I work out a lot. And if you eat trash during the week and you're working out, you feel gross. Yeah. And so I totally skip that. I'm like, no. I'm gonna eat clean. Not just because, like during a fight camp, like where I need to like lose the weight, but it's legitimate fuel for your body, like you're a race car. You should be putting, that race car fuel in you, not some, that's not even putting unleaded. That's like freaking super leaded, right? Like leaded gas for sure. Like you want to keep all that stuff out of you.
Yeah. So as we bring this up, I do want to, like I said, we wanted to circle back to where does martial arts begin for you? Obviously, as somebody with striking near and dear to your heart, did striking find its way first? Or did wrestling or grappling find its way first?
So growing up, my godfather and godmother, they had another. I don't even think they were one of their god kids, but he was a family friend, and he was a junior Golden Glove champ, and he was just always shadow boxing at the little family birthday parties and stuff, and I totally wanted to fight from the beginning. Like I was so like jealous because like he'd be doing his little shadow boxing. They'd be like, "Come on, Pete, shadow box for us," and he shadow box, and I was just like, "Man, I want to do that." And I would like beg and plead with my mom and dad, like, "Come on, like sign me up for boxing. Let me do this, that." And they're all like, "No, like we don't want you fighting anything." So I mean, I played football, but they're just like, no fighting, no actual fighting, and so. My dad would set up. We had a punching bag and like a speed bag in the backyard all the times, and he showed me how to throw like a 1-2, and I loved that. So like I have 2 brothers and a little sister, and so like he showed everyone, but I was the only one who really was like, man, this is like really fun. So took full advantage, and so I didn't really have like a full on teacher or anything, but like I would go outside all the time and throw like 1-2, like 1-2-3 on the bag just for forever. So like I didn't really have any like formal teaching till way later in life, till I was like in college, and I actually like had a part-time job and I could afford for me to go train somewhere. But yeah, just like the idea of being a martial artist and fighting has always been something that I wanted to do. It's funny, like I remember my dad showed me, he was like, throw like this is your jab, and I threw a jab, and my dad was totally like, that's your left hand. He's like, you hit like a girl, like that. Your left hand's terrible. And I was just like, but then I took that to heart. And so like I would go outside and I would just like throw that jab like over and over and over and over again. And like, I mean, I probably wasn't even throwing like a super crispy jab because, like I said, like it wasn't real like formal boxing instruction. But it got me to the point where I was throwing punches and I felt good throwing punches, like. Even before I started training at Tracy's gym, that I was able to throw like with both hands and like feel like comfortable. Like it wasn't super awkward. Like people start training for the first time and they go to throw a punch and it just kind of looks weird. But even though it wasn't super formal, I had just on my own, just gone in the backyard for, forever, just throwing punches, even though they weren't the nicest. They were punches, and my body was used to throwing them. So, like, a lot of people even thought that I had like previous like training when I started training at Tracy's gym, just because I was just in the backyard hitting stuff.
So was Tracy's also where you pick up jiu-jitsu? Where does that enter?
Yeah, no, all the jujitsu I learned was pretty much Tracy. So, in high school, I had a friend. His name's Ryan Medina. He's actually our wrestling coach right now at Tracy Hess Subfighter. And so, in high school, we had talked about fighting and stuff too. And so he knew I was into that kind of stuff. So afterwards, he'd hit me up and it was like, "Hey, I'm at this gym. It's an MMA gym. Why don't you come on by? Like, let's try things out. Try it out. I've been here for like a couple months. Come and do it." And I actually put it off for a while because I had like an injury and I rehabbed it. And I was like, I don't know if I want to go like do some stuff that I just like hurt myself. Like, I feel like it might get hurt again. So I actually I turned him down like for a while. I was like, next month I'll go. Next month I'll go. And he was like, so every month he would hit me up, and then eventually he was like, I'm coming to your house. We're going to the class. I was like, all right. So he showed up. I went into his car. We jumped in his little Jeep, went to practice, and then pretty much I just didn't leave after that. I've been at the gym like every day pretty much since then. And so Tracy's gym showed me pretty much all the jiu-jitsu, all grappling I learned was just straight there.
When did you know, and I usually ask this for grappling, but I am curious, like, when did you know this was actually going to be your career? Because you're doing college, you're, trying to get your education. From the sound of it from day one, your parents didn't sound like they loved this as an idea.
Yeah. Totally hated the idea.
This has to come from deep inside, and to make that commitment to being a professional fighter is a big one. So where does that love come from, and when did you know for sure?
So like growing up, like I said, I don't know, like the ideas of like just like that warrior code, like samurai stuff, just like always really intrigued me. So like being a fighter, and not just like a fighter, but an actual like martial artist, was just like really, I don't know, just really, really big to me. And then as soon as I started training at Tracy's gym, I think he signed me up I'd been at like classes for 3 weeks, and then he was like, "Why don't you do a jiu-jitsu tournament?" I was all like, "All right, let's do it." And then like I won gold. I was like, "Hey, like I'm pretty good at this." I mean, it was just the beginners class, but and it wasn't even a super big one. But I was like, "Hey, I'm pretty good at this." And the next month he was like, "You want to do a fight?" He's like, I don't usually sign people up like this quick, but like you're picking things up." I was just like yeah, let's do it. So I had the first camo fight right there, and then it's a win, but I kind of consider it a blemish because it's the only fight that I've had that I haven't finished. It went unanimous decision, and so like after that amateur fight, every other amateur fight has been a finish, and all of my pro fights that I've won have been finishes. So like I'm like, and that's when I made the choice that I'm never gonna wait for a judge to decide if I won or not. I was like, nope. If it's like completely in my power, I'm gonna win every fight on my own accord. Because waiting there with your hand down is like that. It's almost as bad as your friend fighting, because like it's super nerve wracking. You're like, all these thoughts are popping through your head, like, oh, did I do enough to finish them? Like, or like, did I do enough to get the judge's decision? Like, I think I did. Like, I was totally dominating, but like, are they gonna think that? And I was just like, so they raised my hand, unanimous decision. But I was like, nope. It's way better feeling if like you just choked the guy out, or the ref just threw you off of him, and then you're waiting to get your hand raised because you already know you like won.
Sure.
I like that. I choose that all the time over waiting there. Like, oh dang, did I win? But yeah, from the start training with Tracy's, to go back to that, he would had me like on the mats with like all the other people that were training, and then slowly he kind of like had me go with the more advanced like amateur guys, and like even pros from a pretty early on point of my training. And when I was able to go with them, I mean, they were like more experienced than me, and they had like some knowledge of stuff that it felt like magic. Like, how the heck do you guys do that stuff? But I wasn't really like completely getting my ass beat by them. So I was like, and then I was improving and improving and improving. So I was like, you know what? I think I wanna do this. Like it was pretty like I said, I never left the gym after I tried it the first time. I was like instantly like in love with it. I was like, I had to be there. It's just something that I love to do. So after I won a couple amateur fights too, I was like, maybe I could do this, like professionally. Like I was like, I want to run with this as far as I can. So I mean, that's what I decided to do. Mom and dad, they weren't the biggest fan of that because I was actually in school at Cal State Long Beach. I was originally like pre med. I was like, I'm gonna be a doctor,
Oh
Dr. Green.
no, you
I was gonna
totally
be, I
disappointed
was,
them. Oh
I
no.
was gonna be Dr. Green, and then
No.
I like slowly was like, oh, I kind of love fighting, and then I was at Cal State Long Beach, and getting into the classes I wanted to get into got kind of hard anyways because of like stuff was impacted. Everything was all impacted. I was like, I couldn't take like I took like anatomy, but I could never get into physiology, and I was
Yeah.
just like, then I just started looking at like I was like, that's the one thing my mom was like, make sure you as much because she sees me winning and stuff too, and she's like, you're pretty good at this, and this is what you really want to do. We'll support you 100%, but make sure you still get your degree. So I was just like looking like what's the quickest way out of here. just like which classes which fits with what I had, and then so I ended up being business economics. So that's what I got my degree in.
It's not a terrible one.
No, it's not.
That's
It's
one that teaches you all of the important things.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty practical. There's a lot of ways I can use it. I can spin it a whole bunch of different ways, and so I mean, like I'm happy with it. It was weird though because being in those business econ classes, it was for my degree, all like the core stuff. All these guys are in the class and they're totally like, I can't wait to work for this company, all this stuff, and they're doing their little like what's the word?
Internships or
Internships, yeah. So they're doing that stuff for companies already, and internships aren't even required for the degree, but they're just
Right.
doing it anyways because they're like in love with econ. And I was just like, I want to be a fighter. So I felt like a little out of place the whole time, but yeah, no, I stuck through it, got my degree, and then once I got my degree, I really just started focusing on the whole fighting thing. It's been working out pretty good so
So
far.
far, so good.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. I could just, as you were relaying it, I could just hear the disappointment in the families. Like, but no, doctor, no.
Yeah.
For years, my dad, and every once in a while he'll still try and do this. He'll be like, son, entertainment law seems right up your alley. And I'm like, Dad, I don't know how many times we go through this. It's just not happening. But I swear to God, there was one day where my dad's like, I will pay for all of you, your doctorate to go, or you whatever, just go to law school. And I was like, no. So I've definitely had that moment where I just remember being like, no, Dad, I want to be a journalist for MMA in a sport that really hasn't figured out its thing yet, but we're working on it, okay?
See, I mean, it's nice that our family has they have these dreams and ideas of what they want us to become and everything. But at the end of the day, it's our life. We gotta just do what we want to do.
I will tell you this though. What is very interesting in my world is that last week at Thanksgiving, it was very nice to sit down with my dad. My dad, he doesn't have any idea what grappling is. Like, he kind of gets that it's a thing, but he's just kind of like, yes, then the whole UFC thing. And I go, good enough. Yep. And there was a moment where I was explaining what I'm doing with, in particular, this show, because he knows about the other podcast for Verbal Tap, which is all mostly audio, and he sees me covering the events. And I told him, I'm like, eventually I want to have a show for just grappling that gets people just as excited for major grappling events, like a cable news show, where people chime in for 5 months on who they think is going to win the Super Bowl. I was like, I want that to be for when Buchecha has a fight. I want that to be for when there's a big thing coming up. And it was so funny, my dad just goes, I get it now. And I was like, no way. Literally, like, how long have I been doing this shit? He's just like, no, I understand it now, son. Sounds great. And I was just like, where the hell have you been?
I mean, at least he got there. It clicked.
Hey,
That's
I'm
good.
not. I went home and I was just like, I'm in a great mood. The old man understands what this is. Because my dad kept saying this. He just goes, son, I don't understand how there just isn't a show that already exists. And I was like, there isn't.
Oh
Nobody's
yeah,
doing this. And more importantly, like, because it's not a thing yet, you have to love the sport. You have to love and really, like, in a way, you have to be passionate about it more than everybody else in other sports. You know,
yeah,
in baseball,
yeah.
it's a thing. You know, people
When
know
when
what
it
that
comes to
is.
grappling, for sure, because it's like unless you know what they're doing, you totally have no idea like what they're doing. I know like it sounds like it makes sense, like but like it's really hard to explain. You know, it's like it looks like from the outside, if you have no idea what they're doing, just like two guys like laying on each other or something. Like if it's just jujitsu on the floor, but there's like you so much stuff like trying to like blocking and reversing and like oh he almost got this, he almost got that. If he slips up and puts his hand there, that's what that is. And it's like unless you know about it at all, it's kind of like I could totally see it like not being exciting at all.
Oh
And
yeah.
the more you know about it, the more you're just like and you're like on the edge of your seat, and it's just like you can't even like relate with people that have no idea what's going on just because they're just ignorant to it. They're just
Right.
like what are they doing? And it's like it would take way too long to just kind of explain it to them.
Well, it's also just looking at the bulk of the people that I'm sure you and I both know who train, and their stories are so significantly interesting that you just think, man, this is way more interesting than this guy who's on the NFL. This is way more interesting than this guy who's in, the hockey or whatever. Like, you get to a certain point where you just say, like, listen, I like those other sports too, but there is something amazing about so many of these people's backstories and trying to get to know them, which helps people get excited for the fights. Because sometimes it's that chase of watching people fulfill those narrative dreams that are very exciting.
Yeah, it's with MMA and grappling and stuff. It's such like a the road to the top is so different than any other sport. Like I mean, other sports go to college and then like well, I mean, well, you know, they start off maybe with some like pee wee sports stuff,
Sure.
and then you know, high school sports, and then college, and then it's like pro, you know, and it's like there, but like it's such a grind when it's like for like an MMA fighter.
Yeah.
It's like you know, you start off, you start training, then some of those guys decide to go to their whatever their amateur careers, and then they're there for a while learning, and then you kind of then you go pro, but pro is nothing like what you think pro would be like in any other sport. Pro is like freaking $800, and you're like, yeah, I'm a professional fighter.
Yeah.
It's just like I think with MMA, unless you're at like the very very top. I most fight. It's the only sport where you need another job
Yep.
just to like support you doing your job. So it's like it's crazy. Yeah. So like that whole grind that the fighters have to go through is so different than any other sport. Like even if you're on like the practice squad for an NFL team, you're making more a year than most professional fighters at like a
Yeah.
high level.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
Well,
So that's like you really really have to love the sport of like MMA and the fighting in order to get into it and stick with it from the start. People like kids ask me, well not kids, I mean they're about my age. I'm young, but
I call everybody a kid. I'm going to be very honest, so don't worry, it's fine.
the when they're new to the sport, they're like when they ask me like about being a professional fighter, like I like if they have any like what's the word?
Inclination toward it.
Yeah. If they're really intrigued by it and they're thinking about going into it themselves, the first thing I ask them like, well, why do you want to do it? And if they're like reasons like, oh, I want to be famous and rich, I'm like, you're in it for the wrong reasons, buddy. Just from the start, it's like that's not what the sport's about. You need to if you want to fight because you love fighting and like you know for whatever causes you to love fighting, whether it be competition or a thrill or all that stuff, I'd say you know, stick with it. But if you want to be a fighter because you want to be famous and rich, it's like I don't think those are the right reasons to be a fighter.
Well, there are also less hurtful ways to become famous and rich. So
There are a lot less, yeah. But I mean, I think it's just that's what they're ignorant to. They're thinking like professional athletes make a lot of money, and once I get to the professional athlete level, I'm gonna be a baller. And it's like, nah,
Well,
sorry, buddy.
here's the interesting aspect because Dana White and Oscar went round and round on Fight Pay, and then they disclosed how much people were making on this last card, and it was not as comparable to the UFC's. Now, you could say that's the first event, and you could say that Dana's right, that yeah, they're still not making as much as you would in the UFC, but the nice thing that it does do is it brings it up. And
Yep.
that's a conversation that has continued to plague the UFC. It's continued to plague every major organization, which is there are all these evaluations and there are all these gates that get released as to how much money a certain thing makes. And I don't think people are saying, like, hey, these people need to make in the mega millions. It's just a matter of it seems awkward that there are still fighters who are on major cards. I think even Jalen, when he had his purse revealed for the Conor McGregor card, I'm like, he won the lottery. Like,
Yeah.
to get on that card, and I saw what he was making for it, and I said, I think he could probably make more elsewhere. It's a terrible thing, I think, for athletes to have to still consider in a growing sport, of course, but our hope is that continues to change. So.
That's it. You just cling on to the hope and be like, man, maybe one day, hopefully one day I'll get paid
here's the good
some
news.
better money.
The younger version of you and the younger version of me that are being born like right now are gonna make the money.
That's good.
That's
silver
the nice
lining.
part. You and I will still be around in probably about another 20 years being like, hey kids, can you hire us? He's a good coach and I talk good, so we can make this happen. Yeah? Okay, cool. Thanks, kids.
Yeah.
Well, Gabe, I want to ask this because I know we are short on time, but I wanted to know, what does your 2019 look like? Because, I when you're like, hey, man, I don't really have a fight going on right now. And I'm like, no, I want you to enjoy your holidays. Like, I just wanted to do the interview because I owe you one, but I know that you don't just rest. I know you're still training. I know you're back on the grind, and I know you're helping people get ready for their fights. But what does 2019 look like for you, sir?
2019, I'm a really active fighter, so I'm gonna try to get. I always try to get at least 4, if I can, 5 fights in the year. So that's definitely what I'm gonna aim towards. I actually broke my hand against Leroy in that fight. I broke my right hand, so I'm still not even all the way cleared to strike. So I've just been running and doing strength stuff a lot, and then working a jab because the right hand's broken. But and then drilling kicks and stuff nonstop because just trying to stay in the best shape I can without worrying about that right hand. So as soon as I get that cleared up, I'm gonna try to get a fight soon and then just go for it. I'm definitely enjoying the holidays right now though, without having anything super scheduled or anything. Just I'm a big old foodie. I love food, so eating whole turkeys and stuff, But yeah, so 2019, I really hope it's my year. Not even hope. I'm gonna make it my year. 2019, I'm gonna do big things for sure. I'm not gonna stand by and just wait for something to happen. Go get some fights. I'm gonna just keep on trying to climb that ladder to somewhere. Hopefully, someone big calls me and like, hey, come on down and fight for us. So I can say yeah and just make something happen.
Well, it's cool. I mean, we're obviously waiting patiently for that hand to get healed. I mean, obviously, you're still continuing to put in good work and stay in shape because you stay ready. It's just one of those things where, I always think of it like this. One, it's good to stay active, keep your name and voice out there, and always be, saying like, hey, here's kind of what I want. So that's why we always allow people to kind of give their shout outs or give their who they want to be fighting and all that sort of stuff, that opportunity. So it seems like your first fight is your hand. And then once that's there, we can get back to getting you on track. But the second thing I wanted to bring up is this, which is I saw that you recently went on Brad's. I think he has a show. His
podcast. Yeah, he has a podcast. I went and did that. He films it and then he puts it up on YouTube as well. That was dope. I like doing it. I like the podcast so much that me and one of Ryan Medina, the guy who I went to high school with, it was like we had been talking about doing a podcast for a while, and No, we did it. We're gonna start one. Oh, he's out of here. He's bye.
Let me, Gabe. Okay, listen, dude. I wanna sit you down.
All right, go ahead.
Here's what
Lay
I gotta
some
tell
lay
you.
some wisdom on me.
I will, my friend. Yeah, I feel like I have to do the same thing for you that you would have to do to me if I was going to go ahead and start fighting. I'd be like, well, here's a few things to know about me, Gabe. Number one,
All
I'm
right.
36, so I want to start fighting. What would be the first thing you'd tell me?
Oh wait, hold on. I'd say the same thing I say with everybody. You know, like what's making you do this? Like,
I wanna be rich and
why do you
famous.
want to? See, then I'm gonna say that's the wrong reason.
All right. So here's what I'm going to tell you about podcasting, because you laid it to me straight, and I appreciate that. That's great. Here's the real thing. You're a fighter, and
Oh, yeah.
you can do a podcast, but
Uh-huh.
there is something that happens with me, which is I'm obsessed with being the best at this, much in the same way that you're obsessed with being the best at being a fighter. At a
Right.
certain time, the economy of time doesn't allow you to do both. So
I get what you're saying.
100%, if you want to do a podcast and it's for funsies and it's cool, do it. And it is fun. It's one of the best things to have great conversations with people. But the
Right.
hard part that I see with most people who just start off doing podcasts who just go, I don't know, I mean, me and people do think we're fun, is they do 5 episodes and then they're done. You have to be as obsessed with doing a show as you
Yeah.
are with fighting. And then you have to make sure that doesn't interrupt with your fighting. And that is my advice to you, sir.
And I appreciate it 100%. I going into it, like I have that in mind. You know, like the only reason I was deciding to do it is just because, like you said, you know, just for funsies. I got nothing to do usually on a Sunday afternoon, and some people told me they like to hear me talk, so I was like, I'll talk for you guys, you know, real quick. It'll kill an hour, or 30 minutes or whatever. So that's all it was. We've been talking that we wanted to start one, and so yeah, it was like Black Friday was on there. Like, how much does it cost for like a microphone and stuff? And then it wasn't that bad. We got a pretty good deal on some stuff. So yeah, we're like, it's the right opportunity, it's the right time. So we split the money on some stuff, and then it ended up being like pretty like
It's
really cheap actually.
Yeah, it's actually, if you do it the right way, especially on Black Friday or Cyber Monday, you can really make those deals work for you. Here's my second piece of advice, unsolicited.
Go ahead.
All right. So one of the problems is there's 1,000 podcasts.
Yeah, I've realized that. I'm going into this thinking that maybe like 6 people are gonna listen to me, and that's fine.
They'll come. They'll especially start at the very beginning. You'll be like, oh yeah, I heard that one. Then like 2 months later, people go, I didn't hear that last one. The real key is always figuring out this. So the appeal that I've always had is, what does your podcast do that everybody else's doesn't? So what we say on Verbal Tap is we're the late night talk show of MMA and Jiu-Jitsu. Now, why are we the LA version of, or the late night version of a talk show? Is because I've worked at late night talk shows. I've worked for the Tonight Show. And so I know how to interview people that's akin to them coming and chatting with a Conan O'Brien or a Leno or a Colbert. And so I have a very unique style that I like to interview people in a fun and light way. When I ask people, I say, do me a solid. Tell me in one sentence what makes your podcast unique and different. If they cannot answer me, I say, I will not listen to your show. I go, but if you can tell me one sentence that makes yours unique than everybody else, I will A, be a moderately happy subscriber, and B, I will 100% send you notes. Because there's one thing I can't stand is a terribly produced show. And I have definitely been on record, like driving somewhere like to Vegas to cover a fight, and just thrown my hands in the air and been like, who's fucking producing this? And just like, I'll send those people notes just because I'm like, I want good conversational things to listen to. I wish the best for everybody. So that's the second piece of advice I have for you.
All right. So I think what separates mine from everyone else's is I'm on it. So that's number one. That's gonna be the main thing. I know. you kind of rushed me. There's nothing else for me to throw out. I don't even know what I'm gonna be talking
Well,
about
I didn't
exactly
say you
lately.
had to think about it right now. I'm just
No, I
saying
know, I know. It's just no, yeah, 100% something to think about.
it's
That's
going to
I
be
mean,
the
but I
thing that's going to haunt you. The rest of this podcast, you were like, this is fun. Now at the end, it's Raph. Why is Raph yelling at me? It's because I care. And
no, no, I completely 100% appreciate it.
but the
You're looking
second
out for
part
me.
is going to be when you get off this show, you're definitely going to be driving somewhere. You're like, what does make us different? And that drive is going to make you guys have a podcast. And when you guys become major and huge, you're going to send me royalty checks till here on end. That's fine.
Like,
That's not
you,
important. The real important thing is that you produced quality entertainment for the masses.
yeah, I appreciate it. And now, you know what? It's gonna happen. You should tune in. I think we're gonna go record one on Sunday. I think we're gonna record one on Sunday, and I'm gonna send you a link. You gonna let me know what you think.
Okay. You
I
are.
want you to just go ahead, just rip me a new one if it's terrible, and I'll be like, you know what, guys, I think we're gonna have to stop here.
I would do this. I would do this. It's the same way how I feel like when you have those people who say they're going to fight or they're going to compete. You know, you give them the raw. You tell them what it is, and you say this is not easy. You know,
Yeah.
showing up and doing this is the grind. For me, what always keeps me motivated and highly in love of doing it is I see nobody's doing it a certain way, and I say no, I will do it that way. And more importantly, when you see that void, you're like, man, I'm so geeked out. I love telling somebody's story like this. I love finding out what's this. You know, you don't know that I went to lunch with Rich, and I'm just like, yo, shut the fuck up, dude. We came here to drink, and if you're gonna open up like this, then I'm gonna make fun of you all day. And he's just like, fair enough, cheers. Like, those are things that I think tell a story in a different way. So to me, it's so pivotal to find that hook. Otherwise, you just put stuff out into the ether. And my favorite excuse is when people say, oh, I don't really care who's listening. And I was like, bullshit. I was like, you wouldn't do it unless you actually cared somebody listened to it. But I've had plenty of people be like, oh, that doesn't matter to me. And I'm just like, no, it does. And there's nothing, if you just take certain things to shape and harness your podcast, it could be something that you find unexpected. One thing I would consider, if I'm pitching,
Go ahead.
you are an active fighter.
I am.
That is a little different. So I would say take the things. Obviously, you can connect with people who are fighting as well, but take the things that make you outside of just the fighting world.
You know what? 100. So like 100%. That's like a part of the reason why I wanted to do it. Being a fighter, people see me as right when I'm walking into the cage, they see me perform inside the cage, and then they see me leave the cage. I wanted it to be just kind of an outlet for people to see the other side of me besides just the fighter. And I thought that'd be a good way to express myself that way, and people to get to know me better, more than just it being a podcast and me talking to other people, but people being able to experience who I am as a person outside of a fighter. Because it's being a fighter is, it's a big part of my life, 100%. It's one of the favorite things I do, like, all day, but people don't know all the other stuff that I am besides that. And I thought it'd be a great way for me to show people, and for people to get to know me better. And because that's what, no matter how good you are as a fighter, what makes even the best fighters skill wise don't have the biggest following, and they don't have the most support.
Sure.
Skills not enough. You need to be someone that people can relate to, and people either want to root for, or what it seems like a lot lately are kind of the opposite, and people like want to lose because they're like trash talkers and no one likes them. So I'm not much of a trash talker to begin with, but so I'm going. If people want to root for me to fail, that kind of sucks, But it is what it is. I'd rather have people kind of root for me to win, because that's what my aim is.
Hey,
and
man, I'll tell you this: when I found out you were going against Rich, I was like, I'm not rooting against you. I just feel it's weird that I have to. I'm just gonna sit here and just watch the fight. And here's the thing: I think that you have a good personality. I think you have a good presence. So lean into that. And here's the best part about it is, dude, things that take you outside of where you might conventionally be are going to be great, because the more experiences that you pull and the more things that you kind of get to show from outside this little region. I always say, what's his face? Demetrius Johnson had a great second billing where he was like, everybody calls him boring. And I was like, yeah, he doesn't know how to sell himself. He's a good fighter. That's not the issue.
He's a great fighter, yeah.
And he's elevated himself to almost like that GOAT status for that region. And I was like, yo, he's there. And then all of a sudden he went on Twitch and he's just like, I play video games. I'm a giant nerd. If you guys want to come in. And then all of a sudden people were like, oh my God, he's so good. I can't wait to watch him fight. Yeah, he's really cool. He's like really, and they don't know what it is, but it's those little things that define you, that you can take and you can harness them. I just know that I always listen to things and I always go, all right, what's the hook? What's the difference? What's the thing? And then once you have that thing, you just hit the ground running super quickly. I did notice here, because I did think about this. Neil, I know you're watching right now, and you can only sponsor one podcast, and it's this one. So you could sponsor him as a fighter, but you can't sponsor his podcast. I need to make that decree, because the next thing I know is you coming over and being like, hey, Luda Gear, you love me too. Sponsor my podcast. I'm gonna be like, no. They're one podcast family here.
I'm gonna wear them every single podcast, guys. Every single one. I'm gonna wear them, and I'm gonna have my shirt on. He thought about wearing the shirt, but he didn't do it.
Hey,
I'm wearing the shirt.
Hold on. That's fine. I understand you sold out real quick, whereas I have accountability and presence. I understand. But what I will say, Neil's enjoying this, so I'm glad he is enjoying this. Why don't we do this, my man? Why don't we go ahead and give the shout-outs to all of your sponsors, including the wonderful Luda Gear.
I'm blessed enough to be sponsored by a couple people, so big old shout-out to Luda Gear out there. If you have any kind of, bad joint in your fingers or anything like that, they're the perfect thing to do it. Taping gets super annoying, and then the tape comes off when you're rolling. It's the best thing you can put on a finger and just, hold everything in place. I started using them right after I dislocated a finger, and it was the greatest thing I found. Big old shout out to Trini of SB Hats. He makes my cool little beanies and stuff with my Gifted Gabriel Green logo on it. A great guy, one of the greatest people I've ever met. Shout out to Affliction Clothing. They keep me dressed kind of nice sometimes, and I appreciate that. Otherwise, I'd probably be walking around naked because, like I said, MMA fighters don't make a lot of money.
That may keep sponsors away from you. I don't know that that's necessarily it, but go on.
No, dude, clothes are expensive, so fighters don't make that much money. So the fact that I have a sponsor that kind of shoots me clothes every now and again, it helps a lot.
How society works. I don't think you'd be like, oh, my clothes, they're expensive. I can't wear any.
Shout out to Cryo Spot in the OC Cryo Spot. They help with my recovery every single time you get so beat up being a fighter. And I don't know if you ever tried cryotherapy, but you go in there, they freeze you up real quick, feel a little bit like a popsicle, but you come out feeling like $1 million.
I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I haven't tried that yet, and it's on my to-do list because my back is shot. So I'm one of those guys who's just like, oh god. I recently just did one of my good friends, Joey House, is doing ice baths out here in the valley, and I did that for the first time. And I had told him, I was like, yeah, I think my back's shot. And he goes, yeah, when you get in there, it kind of avails itself what hurts you the most. Mm-hmm. And I was like, cool. So I'm expecting it to be in my lower back. Next thing you know, I jump in there, and I'm like...
You're hurting everywhere.
Well, I just go, I can't feel my legs. I felt like yelling out like, Lieutenant Dan don't got no legs. I was just like, I don't... What's happening to my body? And he goes, oh, it might actually be your legs, not your back. And I go, what's wrong with me? Why am I hurt everywhere?
It's just your body gets so, because you grapple and stuff. It's like your body gets so beat up, and stuff. It's to the point where you don't even realize it's that beat up because it's so chronic. That's just the way my leg feels. But it turns out that it's messed up. You just don't even realize it anymore. So if you're ever, it's in Santa Ana, so it's a little bit of a drive from you, but I'm sure Vic down there at Crowspot OC would be more than happy to hook you up a little bit. He's a super awesome dude. Well, get you in there, help you feel pretty good.
I would love to try it out, my man.
Let's see. Running through, and then I'm sponsored by Enjoyable CBD. I take the little CBD tinctures and patches and pills and stuff, and that definitely helps with recovery too. I feel a dramatic difference between before I started doing it and afterwards. Like I said, it just also helps with the recovery. That and the cryotherapy, just like I don't think I'd be able to work out as much as I do without those things. Like for sure, it's a big old difference. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, that's great. I just love how good you are to your sponsors, and I just wish there was a way that I was much better. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you not bring yours? I always have mine available and ready.
He got me.
That's okay. I mean, it's just a great reminder as to why one of us is a great podcast to sponsor. You're a great fighter. I can't fight like you. I never will. Gabe, I want to say this, my friend. It was so wonderful getting to talk with you today, and more importantly, like, I'm so glad that we were able to amend an interview that didn't get to take place, because it's important to me that when people do really impressive things like winning a belt and crushing it at CXF, that you get the props that you deserve, my friend. And it's one of the things, like, it's not just when I look for people to interview, it's not just the way they fight, it's the way they carry themselves. And I thought you carried yourself in such an excellent way. You seem like a great ambassador for the sport, just in the way that you're fighting and that you hold yourself. And that makes me excited to go out of my way to like interview people like you and hear your story. And I'm so stoked. And again, sharing a sponsor doesn't hurt, but it's one of the things where, you know, I know those guys, and the people who they work with are incredible people. So if you're on that elite list as well, it feels really, really cool to be able to get to have a conversation like this.
See, it goes both ways. You're on that list too, man. You got to be an awesome person.
Well, I mean,
and like,
I think they
man.
write me off on some sort of tax charity thing.
Oh.
Like, I'm not quite sure how that works for him, but we'll ask Neil about it later.
They'll be like, we got all these cool guys, and let's just throw them in there too. No, you're awesome, dude. I had a really fun time this whole time talking with you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for coming back to me. And as far as the props on the CXF title, thank you for that too. Like I said, it wouldn't have been the same show without Rich. So definitely props out to him still, because it takes two to make it happen, and wouldn't have been the same fight without him for sure.
Excellent. Well, you know what, guys? I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who's tuning in right now. It's been a blast to do this. We're going to cut out with a commercial. I believe I'm probably coming back tomorrow in the morning to do another interview with my good friend Brandon McCatherine, but we're going to go ahead and sign off here. From everybody here at the Grappling Hour, we just like to say thank you very much. You guys have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you on the mat.